Hello everyone, I'm very glad that you listened to my story. Please give me a follow and like the video if you enjoyed it. Feel free to comment and provide feedback so I can improve the sound quality. Yes, I will now continue the unfinished story. Chapter 51 The Peerless Garlic 5. Chapter 51 The Peerless Garlic 5. Wang Tanzi might think that way, but the zombie werewolf did not. It only had one thought in mind: feast. As a gatekeeper boss that did not have too much intelligence, the zombie werewolf abandoned the low-hanging fruit before it and turned around. It slowly approached the two with caution. This went to show how powerful the two players were. From how they referred to one another, Xiao Tan guessed correctly that they were Thousand Kills Huaxiong and unparalleled General Pan Feng. Since the players were separated at the start of the scenario and now the players were not showing IGN and titles above their heads anymore, one could only see three things in the team tab: IGN, level, and if they were still alive. Xiao Tan had no idea what their titles were and could not judge their power level. Since the two had come out to rescue him and dared to say such words, Xiao Tan believed that it would not be difficult for them to take down this mini-boss. Great generals. Xiao Tan felt awkward saying that. There are many BW zombies down here, so why don't we lure this mini-boss to the top? Ah! When he reached the latter half of the sentence, his lips suddenly fell open to release a scream. He was not bitten. Even though there were around 5 BW zombies approaching him from inside the parking lot, they were still quite some distance away from Xiao Tan. Besides, one did not need to pay them much attention because they were blocked by the gate. Due to a lack of intelligence, they did not know how to jump over it or crawl under it. All they knew was how to groan endlessly while leaning against the iron gate. The reason Xiao Tan yelled was because he saw something incredible. He saw General Pan leap into the air and raise the axe that was larger than his body over his head. He shot toward the ground like a meteor with the sharp edge of the axe aiming downward. It did not look like he was traveling fast, but the angle of his attack made it so that the large zombie werewolf could not avoid it. The monster roared angrily and raised his claws to defend. At the moment Pan Feng's weapon made contact with the monster's arms, he suddenly increased in speed. The cold axe gleamed, and the next moment, the arm turned into a stump and was spurting out blood. The zombie werewolf's arm was cut off just like that. It was tossed away by the force. Before the monster had a chance to groan in pain, the spear in Huaxiong's arm flew out, and the man was even faster, so fast that Xiao Tan could not catch his movement with his eyes. Blood flew, and the monster's knee was punctured. Its left arm had been chopped off by the axe, and right knee had been shattered by the spear. The zombie werewolf was top-heavy, its upper body more developed than its lower body, so after those two attacks, it instantly lost its balance and leaned toward its right before falling heavily to the ground. The next second, a cold light was reflected in the wolf's eyes, and with a thud, the axe cut into the ground. Blood sprayed, and then, a werewolf head rolled slowly down the slope. Xiao Tan was shocked beyond words. The two killed a mini-boss with just 3 moves. How powerful were they? Xiao Tan had a hard time envisioning that they were just 2 levels above him. The low groaning of the BW zombies from behind him pulled him back to reality. Xiao Tan turned back to look, and more than 10 BW zombies had gathered at the gate already. Endless shadows inside the parking lot were shuffling their way. "Little buddy, why don't you follow us back to the surface?" Pan Feng asked. "Okay. We need to go find a place free of monsters," Xiao Tan replied instantly. He rushed up the slope, and when he passed the zombie werewolf, he could not help but glance at the headless corpse. After leaving the base, Feng Bujue also headed toward Audiobook's company. He understood that the chance would be greater for him to find his teammate there. He only hoped that Xiao Tan and the two players would not rush blindly into the building before he arrived and got themselves killed. He was not in a hurry to save the Professor Ashford mentioned by the quest. To be honest, he did not mind if the professor died. After all, the quest did not mention that the professor's death meant a failure of the quest. This was team survival mode, only by having all players wiped out would they fail. The death of a plot character would only increase the difficulty or change the ending. When Feng Bujue was traveling alone, he killed more than 50 BW zombies. If he willed it, the kill score would have been higher, but since he had to come up with different experiments to verify the monster's properties, that had taken up some time. After the whole journey, his marksmanship had risen from F to E, but his fighting mastery remained at E. It seemed that whacking the monster's heads with two weapons that were not technically weapons while dancing would not raise his fighting mastery. He had to adjust his thoughts. Feng Bujue could not help but be reminded of Passing Rain and that agile, clean, and expert way of killing. Currently, he was unable to perform deeds like that. When he could, his fighting mastery would be at D level. Of course, fighting with these monsters that were no faster than a crab would not improve his mastery level that much. Only by fighting against monsters at the same level or more powerful than him would he be able to increase his mastery. Feng Bujue's immediate concern was to figure out a way to equip Echo Armor. He understood that raising fighting mastery to C would not be so easy, but raising his workmanship to D was doable. After all, it was only a level away. Along the way, he tried to come up with ways to make use of the freedom offered by the scenario to his benefit and avoided as many monsters as he could. Soon, he saw the Audiobook building. It was only several blocks away. Feng Bujue had realized how the number of BW zombies had increased, and he saw some dead zombies. Therefore, the man took a detour to inspect those dead bodies. He squatted next to one and examined the cracked skull and the pool of blood. He examined the head wound closely before moving on to the wounds on the rest of its body. It felt like he was an officer inspecting a crime scene. The head wound was delivered by a baseball bat, he mumbled. A strike from the front and then two more strikes from the side and back. Could this be Xiao Tan's handiwork? He stood up, grabbed the wrench, and used it to down a monster that was shuffling toward him. He stepped on its chest and cracked through its skull with 2 hits. But a baseball bat is a common weapon. Even that so hard to find a name has a few in his backpack, so I cannot remove the possibility that the 2 other players could be armed with baseball bats as well. With that in mind, he continued to move forward. After a few more steps, he saw a group of dead zombies that were laid close to each other. They were all headless, and some of the decapitated heads were still moving. Since they had no access to windpipes, they could not make any sounds, and the heads kept moving their mouths up and down like they were chewing. This shouldn't be Xiao Tan's handiwork. Chapter 52 The Peerless Garlic 6. Chapter 52 The Peerless Garlic 6. At 3 p.m., inside the building of Audiobook, Pan Feng and Huaxiang led Xiao Tan as they cut their way to the top floor. The elevator that went from the ground floor to the 52nd floor was broken, and the entrance to the fire escape was broken down at the ground floor as well. But the elevators that led to the other floors were still usable. They took trips up different elevators from the 1st floor to the 7th floor and then from the 7th floor to the 10th floor, and then they changed elevator again. Repeating this process, they finally reached the 42nd floor. Along the way, they ran into 2 other mini-bosses, but before Pan Feng and Huaxiang, they were completely defenseless, and they were cut down in less than 3 minutes. Facing normal BW zombies was even easier. They were cut down like grass. Xiao Tan learned many things following behind them. When it came to battle, he did not even have a chance to join the fray. It felt like he was a mafia boss cleaning up the scene with his best fighters and only needed to stay back to watch. Big brothers. On the stairs between 42nd and 43rd floor, Xiao Tan finally asked, Are you planning to clear your way to the top and then go back down? That would be a negative, Hua-seong replied. We're going to go save that Professor Ashford. Xiao Tan was confused. I'm not sure if it's too late for me to bring this up, but I glanced at the building layout when we were on the first floor, and the lab is in the basement, not on the top floor. Theoretically speaking, when they heard him say something like that at that juncture, they should come up with reply like, why didn't you say that earlier? But to his surprise, the two appeared completely unfazed. Hua-seong turned back to laugh. Haha, little buddy, we know the lab is in the basement, but that doesn't mean the professor will be in the lab, right? If the professor is not at the lab, where would he be? Xiao Tan thought internally. In the toilet. Based on the common trope used in sci-fi movies, after the explosion of the virus, a researcher would normally find a relative safe location to quarantine themselves and find a way to control the virus or call for help. The top floor of the building was marked as an office space, so if Professor Ashford was really there, he would be zombie food already. Even though Xiao Tan had his suspicions, he did not voice them because he was being carried. What grounds did he have to complain? Even if it was later proved that they had gone the wrong way, he only needed to follow those two back down the building. Several minutes later, Feng Bujue successfully gained entry to the building. By examining the wounds of the bodies that he saw on the way and the bloody footprints that he found on the ground, he realized that there were two people accompanying Xiao Tan. One of them used a heavy weapon with a blade side, and the other used something like a long javelin. Furthermore, they were very good fighters because they killed all of mobs with just one hit. Since the trio had cleared most of the way, it was easier for Feng Bujue to find his way in. The monsters that he ran into while he was inside the building were only a handful. He looked at the building layout and headed down to the basement. He had no idea that the other three were heading to the top floor. Therefore, Feng Bujue found the elevator that headed down in one of the corridors and walked into it. The elevator was spacious, and it honestly looked quite similar to the login lobby without the touch screen and full-body mirror. There was some dried blood inside the elevator, but at least there were no body parts lying around. Since the elevator only connected the ground floor and the underground lab, there were only 5 buttons on the control panel. Feng Bujue pressed the one that would lead him to the lab, and then after the doors closed, the elevator started. Based on the fight result that he had seen earlier, inside this enclosed space, BW zombies would not have escaped from Pan Feng and Hua-seong. But he still gripped the wrench tightly as a precaution against stragglers. Even though he believed the chance of that was exceedingly low. Just as the elevator doors were about to open, an echo of zombie groaning suddenly hit him like a wall, and this startled Feng Bujue. He saw an arm reach through the gap and then another one. Before the door completely opened, 3 or 4 zombies were already trying to get into the elevator. Looking down the corridor, there were 20 to 30 zombies waiting in line. They were mostly wearing security uniforms or lab coats. Their mouths were dripping with saliva while their bodies radiated the stench of death. Even though Feng Bujue was ambushed, he soon regained his senses. He bit on the clove of garlic that he already had in his mouth as he grabbed the kitchen knife to match with the wrench in his other hand. He aimed at the head of the zombie nearest to him. After killing a few zombies, he made a startling discovery. The monsters that were rushing at him were normal zombies. Their faces were not pale, and they had no fangs and their bodies were free from werewolf furs, and the crucial thing was, they were not afraid of garlic. This sudden development took the advantage away from Feng Bujue. He had thought that there would not be that many monsters, but that was not true. To make matters worse, he was cornered inside a cramped space. Like the elevator. The garlic was of no use, and the normal zombie moved faster than the BW zombies on the surface. They were as strong and as fast as a normal human. Feng Bujue had already used slowing sands in the earlier scenario on Roderick Usher's soul, so he was trapped. If it was a normal person trapped inside an elevator with tons of zombie, the best solution was probably to kill themselves. However, Feng Bujue did not even have the time to pull out the guns. He waved the weapons in his hands frantically, and thanks to the special effect from brain concussion, he managed to keep the situation until control. Somewhat. Still, the zombies attacked with their arms, not their heads, and the limitation of space within the elevator made it hard for him to hit the heads. As expected, it did not take long for him to be bitten, and not only on one spot. The sensation of pain was not acute, but he knew that he was probably infected. After dealing with the immediate threat, Feng Bujue stood in the corridor alone with 20 or so dead zombies behind him, and blood flowed like river. He inspected the wounds on his body. They were on his arms and legs, 4 in total. Other than the cloth near the sensitive parts, the player's outfit could be ruined. As long as the damage was less than 10% of the overall outfit's coverage, the system might delay or deny the recovery. Therefore, Feng Bujue's sleeves and pants had openings that exposed the zombie's bite wounds. The status next to his life points showed that he was diseased, proof that he was infected. Feng Bujue sighed and took out the Winchester from his backpack and loaded it before moving forward. Why the lab would contain normal zombies, he had no idea, but he knew that there was a buffer period before the infection took over. There would be symptoms like a high fever, so he still had some time left. The plan was to find a serum inside the lab and to investigate whether Xiao Tan and the other 2 players were there or not. If they were not, it meant that they had headed upstairs. If they were, there had to be a reason to explain the ambush at the elevator. At the same time, in front of the gun store, Adobe-sama and Ming Zi grabbed a sofa and placed it in the middle of the road. The 2 sat on it and used the zombies that were shuffling slowly toward them as target practice. Of course, as relaxing as that was, they still maintained some caution. After all, with their accuracy, landing a headshot at a long distance was quite difficult. For those zombies that fell over from a hit to the legs, they would walk over to inspect whether the zombies were really dead or not. Those that were still alive would be rewarded with a shot to the head. The guns in the shop were generally usable by those with F in general ability, so they had a lower equip requirement than the M1911A1 pistol that Feng Bujue had found when he was level 5. Obviously, for scenarios above level 10, the limitation on the usage of firearms was relaxed so that players who had not unlocked the marksmanship mastery had the chance to do so. Hey, look, what is that? Ming Zi suddenly saw a strange shadow that was coming from afar. Adobe-sama was facing the opposite direction, but he turned around to look. Could that be another player? The person's movement was not that of a zombie, and that was why it had attracted Ming Zi's attention. As she approached, the 2 finally got a closer look. It was a young lady with great proportions and hair to her shoulders. She had a pretty, oval face. Her skin was fair with deep, rippling eyes, a high nose, and small lips. She was wearing a black tuxedo that was too small for her figure. It accentuated her slender frame, forming a great contrast to the volume around her chest. In any case, she's not wearing the outfit made default by the system, Ming Zi said. You have a point, and from her looks, I don't think she'd call herself unparalleled General Pan Feng or Thousand Kills Wasyong, Adobe said. That Feng Bujue told us Wang Tanzi is his friend and is also a male player, so there shouldn't be a female player in this scenario. But she doesn't look like a monster either. Is she an NPC? Ming Zi asked. Let's try to talk to her. Adobe raised the TMP and aimed it at the beauty, shouting, Stop! Who are you? The answer that he got was a smile on her lips. Several seconds later, the smile turned into a wicked grin, revealing the fangs that it had been hiding. Chapter 53 The Peerless Garlic 7. Chapter 53 The Peerless Garlic 7. Team member, Audiobook, dead. Team member, so hard to find a name, dead. The system audio announced their deaths, and Wang Tanzi quickly opened the game menu to take a look. Both of their names had the status dead next to them. After recovering from his brief shock, Xiao Tan opened his lips to ask, "Big brothers, do you think they could have died inside this building's underground lab?" "Oh? Why would you think so?" Pan Feng continued to move forward and replied without turning his head. From his tone, it sounded like he did not care so much about the deaths of the two players, like their deaths would not have affected their success rate. Then again, with the combined force of Pan Feng and Hua Xiong, there was a basis for that confidence. Well, think about it, one of them is level 14, and the other level is level 12. They're at least stronger than I am, and I am not afraid of the BW zombies on the street, so they couldn't have fallen victim to them. If they came to this Alarb Muse building, saw the layout map, and went to the underground lab. He paused before continuing. We've not been to that place yet, so there might be great danger. It might even be guarded by a boss. Could it be that they ran into a zombie werewolf? You have a point, Hua Xiong said, but his tone implied that he had considered that as well and was merely saying that to brush Xiao Tan off. But since they're already dead, we won't be able to do anything if we turn back now. Plus, we're already so close to the top floor, so why don't we finish clearing our way to the top and then? How about this? Xiao Tan interrupted him. Big brothers, you can continue to move toward the top floor while I go back down to the ground floor. He took out the baseball bat from his inventory. Since he had been free from battle, Xiao Tan had even put his weapon away. The remaining player is my friend, and he might not have arrived at this building yet, but I'm sure he'll eventually arrive here. I'll go wait for him at the ground floor, and when I meet up with him, I can warn him from going to the basement. Then, we'll come to meet up with you. The two stopped moving and turned to look at Xiao Tan before exchanging a look between themselves. Hua Xiong shrugged. Okay then. Little buddy, you'd better be careful. We'll go on ahead. Xiao Tan nodded and turned to retrace their steps. He turned around the bend and rushed into the emergency staircase. He had no idea that Feng Bujue was already inside the underground lab and did not realize that his prediction for the location where Audiobook and Ming Zi had died was wrong. He was merely acting on his instinct. After he wandered away, Pan Feng suddenly used a serious tone to say, before the two players died, they stayed at the same coordinates for a long time, and that place is very far from this building. Ah, I noticed that as well, Hua Xiong replied. The place shouldn't have a mini-boss, and before night falls, there will only be a handful of BW zombies that roam the city. Plus, their time of death is only several seconds between each other. So, unless they jumped off the building together. So, it is the work of the anomaly, Pan Feng said. They've reached out toward the players so soon. We should work faster to prevent the other two players from encountering the anomaly. In that case, it's a good thing that the little buddy has gone. Now we don't need to hold back. After all, the way back is relatively safe since most of the mobs have been killed already, so he should be safe for now, Hua Xiong said. But the status of that Feng Bujue is not that good. Even though he still has 73% of his life points, but he's infected. When he reaches the transformation stage, the system will deem the player as dead. We'd better settle this before that happens. He took a deep breath. 4 players are arranged into the scenario, and we can't do much for the 2 dead players, but if 3 or more players are killed before the scenario is cleared, then our work will fail. Pan Feng nodded. You're right. We must kill Ashford as soon as possible. As long as we enter that path of the plot, we'll soon clear the scenario. No matter what, we must send the players out of the scenario, so that we can focus on dealing with the anomaly. Feng Bujue traveled down the corridor of the lab with his Winchester. The lighting system there was operating just fine, and there was not that many zombies around. Other than the ambush at the elevator, the rest of the time, it was no different from the experience he encountered on the surface, 1 or 2 zombies at every 3 to 5 corridors. Feng Bujue's shotgun was very effective inside this small corridor. As long as he waited to shoot until the monster was close, no matter how bad a shot he was, it would end the battle there and then. After all, even if he just hit the limbs, the monsters would fall, but should he hit the torso, the monsters would be sent flying or riddled with bullet holes. He explored a large area, and most of the electronic doors could be opened. Most of the rooms only had metallic shelves, and they were filled with paper boxes that contained paper documents and files. Feng Bujue naturally read through the files, but the content was meaningless. The files had a lot of repetition, and the important details were blacked out by markers. Some rooms had large computers with big monitors and control panels, but all of them were broken, and Feng Bujue could not even switch them on. In a way, it was quite convenient because Feng Bujue did not need to spend time looking through such rooms. After some walking around, Feng Bujue finally found a door with a higher security clearance. The door needed to scan both someone's retina and fingerprints to open, and the game was kind enough to provide a zombie in a white lab coat not far away from the door. Feng Bujue shot the enemy on its waist and the zombie crumpled to the floor with its intestines spraying everywhere. Feng Bujue grabbed the baseball bat from his inventory to break the bones of the zombie's legs and arms. Then, he changed into the kitchen knife and cut off the zombie's head and one of its arms. He even took the opportunity to look through the zombie's outfit and only left when he discovered nothing. After the scan was done, the door opened. Feng Bujue tossed the head and arm away since he had no use for them anymore. This was obviously a space that was connected to the plot. On the wall facing the door, there was a large metallic valve, not dissimilar to the one at the bank safe. On the left side of the wall was a row of glass tubes. They were 1 meter tall and around 30 centimeters in diameter. They should have been filled with liquid, but since the glass casing was shattered, the content had flowed onto the ground. It was a kind of half-transparent liquid that was light green in color. The floor of the room was stained with the substance. The few computers in the room were broken, and the monitors were all black. Next to one of them lay 2 dead bodies in lab coat. Feng Bujue approached them cautiously and, after some observation, confirmed that they were normal dead bodies, not monsters lying in ambush. They were both males, and one of them looked over 50, with a balding head and wearing spectacles. The other had gray hair and small goatee. Both of them were advanced in age. The balding guy had a gunshot wound in his skull, and the goatee had 2 gunshot wounds on his chest and torso. They were left unmoved after death. The positioning of their dead bodies proved that. Feng Bujue tried to reconstruct the assault in his mind. The killer should be someone they knew. He entered the lab through the door and suddenly pulled out the gun. At a close distance, he fired the bullet at the balding guy's head. The bullet entered the skull and killed him on the spot. The balding guy was sitting in the chair, so after his death, his body slipped down from the chair and was lying on the ground. With the first shot was fired, the goatee, who was several steps away from the computer, was facing away from the door. He turned around when he heard the gunshot, but the killer did not give him any chance to react. He instantly fired 2 more rounds to kill the man. The goatee's body was leaning forward as he fell. Before he died, he even grabbed the edge of the table for support before collapsing to the ground. From the pose, bloodstains, and expressions of the dead bodies, Feng Bujue came up with this hypothesis. As a crime novel writer, he was good at reconstructing the criminal process from the crime scene. He had acted out such scenes who knew how many times in his mind. Sometimes, to write out specific murders, he would conduct related experiments. It might sound troublesome, but at the end of the day, they were strategies that came from his mind, so it would be quite meaningless if they could not be replicated in real life. Feng Bujue looked at the two bodies and laughed. Since they're not infected, they must have taken the serum already. He faced the bodies and talked to himself. There are so many people in this base, and I believe that only researchers who have to deal with the virus directly would have a privilege like that. As he reconstructed the case in his mind, he said, no matter the purpose, if we make the assumption that the killer is a researcher with the serum, he killed these two people, broke the container with the virus, and then escaped the room with a minuscule amount of the serum. Out in the corridors, he continued to kill and used the virus to cause the zombie transformation. Then, he escaped from the lab and allowed the virus to spread to the surface, but for some reason, the people on the surface transformed into a different kind of zombie. Or rather, the killer didn't have a chance to escape the lab and was killed by security or something. The BW zombies outside the lab have nothing to do with the virus here, and they're caused by a completely different thing. At that point, Feng Bujue was reminded of another thing, and he mumbled to himself, but the guy at the door had the qualification to enter this room, so he should be a researcher who had taken the serum, so why did he zombify? Feng Bujue needed more information to understand the situation, so he inspected the two bodies again and found a key inside the pocket of the goatee. There was an office table several meters away. Feng Bujue walked over with the key and opened all the drawers. He found two syringes, a stack of papers, some stationery, a stapler, pins, and so on. Only the lowest drawer was locked. He tried the key that he found, and the lock clicked open. Chapter 54 The Peerless Garlicate. Chapter 54 The Peerless Garlicate. There were two pieces of paper inside the drawer. It was obviously a clue to a puzzle given by the system. Feng Bujue opened the first paper, and 3 rows of hints were written on it with bad handwriting. The first row was JMJ-odd, the second row was 1/4F, and the third was 3/4F. Feng Bujue glanced at them and tooted condescendingly. The content of the second paper was more interesting. It was a printed document. The handwriting was neat, and it contained details of the virus. First, the virus code name was indeed Z, and since the introductory CG had already mentioned it, it looked like the monsters on the surface and the people in the building suffered from the same type of virus infection, but if that was the case, why did they transform into different kinds of zombies? Secondly, the player had 3 hours to cure the infection once they contracted the virus. The document said the following. Within the 3 hours from the infection, flu-like symptoms, a high fever, and finally dementia will settle in. This explained why Feng Bujue was breaking out in a cold sweat and suffering from listlessness. Since the system could not simulate the experience of dementia to the player, when the virus started to affect the brain, the player would be categorized as dead and kicked out of the scenario. Then came a detailed description about the virus within the infected system, like how it would infect the healthy cells, causing cell death, the increase in storage capacity of hemoglobin and slowed blood flow to improve muscle tenacity and strength, severely compromised intelligence and intense desire for human flesh. Of course, there was the last tip that said, a heavy hit to the head is required to incapacitate the infected. Feng Bujue finished reading that and breathed out to himself. Isn't this SCP-008? But at least there is a serum placed in this scenario. When he said that, his eyes had already fallen on the final part where it described the serum. Experiments prove that the serum is not effective on everyone. Due to factors like gender, age, blood type, and race, in our 390 experiments, only 154 people who got the serum survived and got the symptoms of the infection removed. The survival rate of the serum was less than 40%. There is currently no theory to explain the efficacy of the serum. After reading the document, Feng Bujue felt unsettled. With his luck, there was no chance he would survive even with the serum. Even if he found the serum, he only had a 40% chance to cure his status. Otherwise, he only had 2 hours left, and clearing the scenario within that time limit did not seem possible. The biggest contribution he could make was to find the serum and hand it to his teammates. Speaking of teammates, 10 minutes prior, when he heard the death announcement of Adobe-sama and Ming Zi, he had realized that the scenario was not as simple as it appeared. The death of those two confused him. They did not seem like the type who would wander away from the gun store for no reason. Therefore, the fact that they had died in quick succession meant that they had probably run into some extremely powerful enemy at the gun store. But how could there be a monster that powerful in a place that had no connection to the main quest? If night had come and that strengthened the BW zombies, even if they swarmed the two players with guns, they would not have died so soon, right? Other than that, he had suspicions about Pan Feng and Huaxiang, whom Xiao Tan was traveling with. Based on his current observations, after they led Xiao Tan into the building, they did not head toward the underground lab but went somewhere else. Why would that be? There was a large layout map in the first floor lobby, and the main quest clearly stated that they were to save a professor. The other floors were filled with other departments or the office area, so why would they run upstairs to conduct their search? There were too many strange situations and too little evidence. Feng Bujue stopped dwelling on it, and he turned to walk toward the metallic valve. He leaned to look at the lock next to it. So, it is a 6-digit password. Looking at the panel, he revealed a "I thought so" type of expression. He keyed in 312,928, and once he was done, the light on the panel lit up. The puzzle was simple. Feng Bujue had solved it as soon as he saw the hint. The first rows JMJ represented the first letters of the months January, March, May, July, August, October, and December, the months with 31 days. The F on the second and third row represented February, the only month that started with F. 1/4 meant leap year that came every 4 years, and naturally, 3/4 was the other 3 years. The password was the number of days in the months listed out, so the password was 312,829. The puzzle was not hard for Feng Bujue, as someone who had to come up with puzzles often, so once the clue was found and as long as the puzzle did not require knowledge that he did not have, he could solve it easily. After unlocking the door, Feng Bujue grabbed the valve and turned. It was a relatively small room inside. The 3 walls were arranged with transparent cupboards, and they were filled with test tubes. Each one of them was marked with a sticker for clear identification. He grabbed a test tube to study its attributes. Item name, antidote serum. Item type, plot item. Quality, normal. Function, 39.48% chance to neutralize the effect of virus Z. Can be taken out of the scenario, no. Remark, can be used through shot or direct ingestion. Ineffective against zombies and zombified players. Based on the serial number, Feng Bujue discerned that the serums were made in batches, and perhaps they contained different components. Feng Bujue could not help but think that perhaps this virus Z was not created by Audiobook, but they were merely trying to come up with the antidote after discovering the virus strain. Feng Bujue had no time to waste on understanding the company's stance. He had no idea which batch of the serum was most effective, so he grabbed a random tube, filled the syringe that he had found earlier with it, and gave himself the shot. Once the shot was administered, his medic mastery was unlocked to level F. The system audio said, "Congratulations for unlocking all the masteries available during the closed beta. During the closed beta, Feng Bujue repeated, meaning more masteries will be unlocked in the future. He opened the game menu, and as the system said, all the masteries were unlocked. This was a good thing, but the diseased status next to his life points was still there. So, I failed, he said disappointedly. Shall I give myself another shot? I wonder if there are any side effect to overdose. Just as he was hesitating, the diseased status disappeared, and the status bar returned to none. Luckily, he did not close his game menu instantly, or else he might have missed out on this delayed update and taken another shot for no reason. Feng Bujue laughed 3 times and had a feeling of revival. He grabbed a test tube rack from the cupboard, and it had 8 serums in total. He carefully placed it inside his inventory, and thus, his inventory was full with Mario's wrench, the Eye of Hostility, a kitchen knife, a baseball bat, a flashlight, an M1911A1 pistol, Echo armor, Winchester shotgun, antidote serum X8, and a bag of garlic. The jazz shoes were on his feet. Unless they were replaced, they would not be returning to the backpack any time soon. Of course, if necessary, Feng Bujue could put on the Eye of Hostility and carry a weapon in his hands to free up the space. After his status was cleared, Feng Bujue did not need to explore the lab anymore. He had gone down there to find his teammates, and he had been ambushed once the elevator door opened. When he was initially infected, he did not know how long he could last, so he could only find the serum as fast as he could. Since he was no longer on a death timer, he thought that it was better for him to go back the surface to find his teammates. Considering that he already had the serum, he might trigger some event, and he might run into some mini-boss if he continued his exploration. For someone who had just recovered from certain death, he did not want to take such an unnecessary risk. Just as he thought that, the system said, current quest completed. Main quest updated. What? Feng Bujue was shocked. Is Professor Ashford really not underground? It was right for the 3 to head upstairs. Does this mean they've successfully rescued the professor? He quickly opened the menu to see the updated quest. The quest was Defeat the Mutated Ashford. Chapter 55 The Peerless Garlic 9. Chapter 55 The Peerless Garlic 9. What kind of development is this? Feng Bujue said. So, the professor we need to rescue is actually the antagonist. His earlier analysis flashed across his mind. Combining it with the quest details, several seconds later, his expression shifted slightly. Could this Ashford be the culprit that spread the virus? Did he go to the top floor and use some kind of device to release the virus into the city after escaping from the lab? Is that why the city was ravaged by the virus outbreak and there are no survivors? This F***er is Professor Lizard, isn't he? Since he was alone and not near any working surveillance devices, the system did not censor this curse word. Wait a minute. Feng Bujue suddenly realized something. Those two. Just who are Pan Feng and Wasyong? They rushed toward the main quest once they entered the building like they knew they could clear the quest without going to the underground lab. Based on common logic, the progress of the quest should be: after the players enters the building, they go to the lab, find the serum, defeat a mini-boss, and then find the clues that point out Professor Ashford as the villain. Then, based on these clues and hints, they rush upstairs. But that's not what those two did. They rushed upstairs directly to expose the boss and used physical threats to expose its identity. Xiao Tan is still alive, so basically, I can confirm that he's traveling with the two of them, but he is not a leader type of player, and he has no reason to tell them to move upstairs. Furthermore, the two are super professional players and wouldn't deign to listen to his opinion anyway. So, the two were acting according to their own instincts, and they've been completely right. The more Feng Bujue thought about it, the more unsettled he felt. He tried to focus and slowed down his agitated emotions. He took out the Winchester, loaded it, and exited the door. Even though he was in a hurry during the earlier exploration, it had been ordered chaos, and he had memorized the route that he had taken. Furthermore, he had the dead zombies as road markers, so it did not take long for Feng Bujue to get back to the elevator. With the added running speed from the jazz shoes, he reached a sprinting speed that would have caused other players to lose some stamina points easily. 10 minutes later, Feng Bujue returned to elevator. When he left this place earlier, he did not have the time to clear away the dead bodies, so when he arrived, the elevator doors were not closed as they were stuck by the dead bodies. He used about 3 minutes to drag the bodies that blocked the elevator out into the corridor and then took it to return to the first floor. He happened to run into Wang Tanzi in the lobby. "Hey! Xiao Tan!" Feng Bujue called after him. Xiao Tan turned around. "Eh? Brother Ju, why are you coming from behind me? Don't waste time." Feng Bujue interrupted him. As he walked forward, he took out a test tube of serum from his backpack and handed it to Xiao Tan. "Drink it?" "What's this?" Xiao Tan asked as he accepted the serum. He looked at its attributes. "Where did you get this?" "I just came from the underground lab," Feng Bujue replied. "Huh? But the other two players?" Before Xiao Tan finished, Feng Bujue knew what he wanted to ask, so he answered, "They died somewhere else. They communicated for a while before heading up the building. Along the way, they tried to fill the other in on what had happened." Xiao Tan's description supported Feng Bujue's analysis, increasing his suspicion of Pan Feng and Hua Xiong. For Feng Bujue, those two's power level was still within the acceptable range, but the problem was their actions. Without collecting any clues and information, they knew to rush to the top floor to face off against Professor Ashford. Either this was some superhuman luck or they had access to information that was not given to normal players. Feng Bujue followed Xiao Tan all the way up to the 51st floor. Before the 47th floor, they were retracing the trail that Xiao Tan had taken with Pan Feng and Hua Xiong. Beyond that, Xiao Tan had not been with the duo anymore, but based on the dead bodies on the road, they could still follow their footsteps easily. When they were close to the top floor, Feng Bujue asked, "When you followed them, did you run into any dead end?" Xiao Tan tried to remember. "Now that you mention it, that really didn't happen. But the route we've been taking is quite complicated already. We switched between multiple elevator shafts and stopped at different floors to take the stairs when the elevator couldn't go up anymore." "Huh? That's not right though. How did they know which floor we needed to stop to take the stairs?" "So, they even knew the route," Feng Bujue mumbled. As they conversed, they soon reached the 52nd floor. Walking in from the stairs, it was a corridor that welcomed them. There was a large flower vase every 10 meters, and at the end of the corridor was a glass wall. Through the transparent wall that had the logo of Audiobook, one could discern a large office area. The walls for the whole floor were broken down, but there were cubicles with normal office furniture like an office table, computer, water machine, shelves, and so on. Bookending the area were several isolated offices. From the looks of it, this floor was as indicated by the building layout an office area. They moved down the corridor and walked into this spacious office through the automatic door. There was no sign of blood or zombies yet on this floor, but that was not a good omen. In fact, it spelled the advent of the boss. Feng Bujue scanned the environment once. Before he could start investigating, he felt a shake under his feet and heard a loud boom. Then, the ceiling of the space about 10 meters in front of him suddenly cracked, and a strange creature in the rough shape of a human fell through the hole. The pieces of cement landed on the ground, and a curtain of dust fell following the commotion. Then, two more human shadows leaped down from the hole. They were none other than Pan Feng and Huaxiang. In the rolling dust, one could see three individuals fighting it out. Shadows of weapons flashed through the layer of dust, overlapping each other. Occasionally, there were squishy sounds of blades cutting through flesh, and soon, a pool of blood stained the ground. This kind of assault continued for about a minute before the dust slowly dissipated. The monster knew that it was cornered and chose to jump out the window. The duo saw through its plan. Naturally, they would not allow it to escape, or their plan to end the scenario right then would fail. Huaxiang leaped forward to block the monster's path. He turned, and the spearhead aimed at the monster's head, shooting forward like an arrow. Since Pan Feng's weapon was heavier, his speed was slower. He charged forward to get close to the target and raised the axe to hit at the monster's back. The quick follow-up by the duo drove Ashford's mutant into a dire corner. For the sake of escape, it decided to suffer the hit to the head. The spearhead pierced through the monster's left eye socket and poked out through the back of its head, carrying a spray of dirty liquid out with it. However, that level of injury was not enough to cause direct death. By taking that blow, it successfully evaded the axe slash from Pan Feng and reached the glass wall. Then it used the saw-like bone that protruded out of its shoulder to ram against at the thick wall. After it formed a crack, it curled its body into a ball and rolled out the window, flying into the city. Pan Feng and Huaxiang rushed to the edge and lowered their heads as they watched the mutant escape. After the latter had been falling for a while, it used the slime and suckers on its body to adhere itself to the outer wall of the building and glided down to the ground. Then, it escaped from their sight. "Tisk, it still got away," Pan Feng said. "That's to be expected. If we fight the boss without the accompaniment of the other players, we will cause a change to the boss' intelligence and reaction," Huaxiang said. "Gentlemen." Feng Bujue's voice echoed behind them, causing the two to startle. They turned around to meet Feng Bujue, who was eyeing them suspiciously, and Wang Tanzi, who looked confused. "Do you mind telling me," Feng Bujue asked directly, "who exactly are you?" Chapter 56 The Peerless Garlic 10. Chapter 56 The Peerless Garlic 10. "This is bad," Pan Feng whispered. "Do you think he heard us?" Huaxiang whispered back. "I'm standing just several meters away from you. What's the point of whispering?" Feng Bujue said. "Yeah. Haha, you have a point," Pan Feng mumbled. Feng Bujue interrupted him. "Before you try to come up with some nonsense to lie to us, let me state this. I don't think you are cheating players because you don't act like that. Obviously, you are working for Dream Incorporated. You're probably the GM, but either way, I don't think it is wise for you to have your job exposed." His eyes scanned the duo, telling them to pay attention to what he had to say next. "Tell us the truth, and we can cooperate with you and maintain the secrecy when everything is over. Or else, I might add my own spin to what I've seen today, split the story into 10 parts, and release them in serial format on all the game forums. Wait a moment, let us discuss this first," Huaxiang replied. "Go ahead," Feng Bujue said and turned to put some distance between them. The two walked away from the broken window to the corner of the office and whispered among themselves. About 5 minutes later, they returned. Pan Feng told Feng Bujue and Xiao Tan, "All right, what do you want to know? What is your real identity, what mission are you currently up to, and what is going on with this scenario?" Feng Bujue fired the questions quickly, he had been thinking about them. "Your guess earlier is correct, we are the GMS, Huaxiang admitted. We came to this scenario to deal with a string of trash codes called the anomaly. With regards to the plot of this scenario, you've seen it yourself. The thing that we were chasing earlier was the mutant of Professor Ashford. The plot is as follows. This Ashford is anti-human. After stealing virus Z from the lab, he added it to a concoction that he had prepared earlier and used a device on the roof of this building to infect everyone in the city. Is that why the zombies inside the lab are all normal zombies but those outside became BW zombies? Feng Bujue asked. Actually, as the mutated form of the normal zombies, BW zombies are designed to be stronger than normal zombies. They might not be the part currently, but once night falls and without the help of Garlic, a player of your level will have serious difficulty dealing with them, Wasyong said. Then, what about the zombie werewolves that we ran into earlier? Xiaotan asked. Based on the plot, the system had to assign a few mini-bosses around the building, Pan Feng replied. The setting for zombie werewolf is that the infected has a 3 in 10,000 chance to become a stronger and more stabilized mutant. You sure have access to plenty of information, Feng Bujue commented. The information of the monsters, the paths to clear the scenario, when the event will be triggered and the scenario map, those should be accessible to you, right? Not only that, the coordinates of the players, their current status, the skills inside their skill tab, the effects of their titles, and so on. We can look at that whenever we like from the menu, Pan Feng explained. I remember. You should be infected, right? You managed to find the serum at the lab on your own? I'm impressed. You flatter me, Feng Bujue replied, but I believe there is one thing that you cannot access. And that is the anomaly that you mentioned earlier, yes. Wasyong sighed. If we could, do you think we would waste so much energy and take the time to do the quest? After clearing the scenario, us normal players will be transported out while you should be able to ignore the teleportation countdown. So, after we leave and gain the reward, that is when your real job begins. Without the interruption from other players, you won't need to hold back and find the anomaly in the world where the scenario has been completed and deal with it, Feng Bujue deduced. Oh. Not bad, just a few sentences, and you managed to come up with all that already. Wasyong nodded. I think I know everything there is about you two and this scenario already. Feng Bujue reached out to touch the back of his neck and stretched to ease some pressure. Please tell me about the anomaly in details. Even if you know, it is of no use to you because you cannot be of any help, Pan Feng said. If I were you, I would get the GM to help me to find that escaped mutant, kill it, and then earn some easy reward. Please tell me the details about the anomaly, Feng Bujue said with a smile. Or else I won't be able to stop myself from writing a strongly worded and highly instigative letter to Adobe-sama, and so hard to find a name to tell them that, due to the technical failure of the gaming company, they were killed by some kind of strong monster that shouldn't exist in the scenario in the first place. Hey, but how did you know that they were killed by the anomaly? Pan Feng asked. It's simple cause and effect, Feng Bujue said. Pan Feng and Wasyong were confused by this answer. Alright, fine, Wasyong said. It's okay to share this with you. Actually, the anomaly will be discovered by the players sooner or later. Even though the chance of the players running across them is very small, the company is still preparing to release a statement during the open beta to explain the situation in more acceptable terms. He looked around and said, "Come with me." Then he walked toward the coffee table, leading the rest with him. He walked to the cubicle that was closest to the machine and picked up the can of coffee on the table. He opened the lid and pointed at the coffee powder that was 3/4 full. Imagine these coffee powder as the data. One of the powder particles needs to be destroyed by the system because it is an uncontrollable trash code. This particle is continuously moving through this whole can of powder, changing its location. How would you separate it from other coffee powder? It's impossible, Feng Bujue answered instantly. You're right, Wasyong replied. He reached into the can and grabbed a handful of powder, placing it in the middle of his palm. The only thing the system can do is make use of every usable moment to grab the set of Data and all the data surrounding it at the time like this, holding them in its hand. He raised his fist slightly, and the powder slipped through his fingers. Of the fistful of powder that I have, I only need one single particle, but the rest of the powder is important to the system as well. I can't toss everything away for the sake of one particle, and I can't hold onto this fist of powder for too long because the particle that I want to destroy might slip through my fingers at any moment. So, the system uses this data to come up with a scenario, Feng Bujue extrapolated. To materialize the anomaly from their code form into an actual monster and then send you guys in to kill it, incapacitate it so that it wouldn't escape, and then the system will be able to clean it up while it cleans up the scenario. That's exactly it. Wasyong grabbed a cup and found a tub of sugar cubes. This cup is the shell of the scenario, and you players are like these sugar cubes. When you're queuing up for the scenario and heard the system say, the team size has been randomized, a team of 6. He tossed the coffee powder into the cup. The data was tossed inside the shell, but at this stage, they are merely different base elements, like air, water, dust, and so on. Then, 6 players including yourself arrived at the entrance of this scenario and respectively heard the announcement, your team has joined the team queue. Currently searching for other readied players or teams. At that moment, he tossed away 2 cubes and said, 2 of them were replaced by me and Brother Pan. The 2 were instantly sent into another queue, so they did not personally experience this shift. We GMS normally work in pairs, and once an anomaly's code is cornered inside a starting scenario, we are sent in to intercept that team, Pan Feng said. The players we replaced are normally a team of 2 or 2 single players, and they will not be in the same group as the other players in the scenario. What happens if you run into a group of 5 or 6 playing together? Xiao Tan intercepted. If it's a group of 5, we will replace that solo player and send in a single GM. If it's a group of 6, then there's nothing we can do but let them face the anomaly on their own. But from the start of the server, there have been no reported cases where a group of 6 friends ran into an anomaly. By the way, the amount of data captured by the system is only usable to generate a 6-person scenario, so you don't need to worry about running into the anomaly in a scenario designed for 2 to 5 players or in other modes. Doesn't this mean that the 6-people team mode is very dangerous? Xiao Tan gasped. Do you think there are so many anomalies walking around? Pan Feng laughed. This kind of anomalous data's ratio is about 1 in a million. During internal testing, the 2 sets of servers for sleep mode and non-sleep mode ran continuously for 30 days, and only 10 anomalous codes were formed. In any case, when you hear, generating the scenario, Wasyong tossed all the sugar cubes into the cup and walked to the coffee machine to add hot water. The coffee powder dissolved into liquid. All these elements form into a normal scenario according to your level, combat ability, mastery type, and previous performance. Things like plot and world building are formed during this moment as well. The anomaly will get mixed inside this scenario and materialize after combining with other basic data. Feng Bujue thought about it and asked, then, just how powerful is an anomaly? Haha. Pan Feng laughed. You've witnessed our power level, right? I have, Feng Bujue answered. Do you know why we need to work in pairs to deal with the anomaly? Because working solo might get you killed, Feng Bujue replied. You got it? Pan Feng nodded. It might show on your menu that we're level 13, but we're using the GM account, and our combat ability is actually about 10 levels higher than what is shown. Even so, this does not mean that we're unstoppable. Take for example the boss from earlier. When it jumped off the building to escape, we could not do anything. If we followed it, then we would have died like a normal player. Then why didn't the company raise the power level of the GMS? Xiao Tan asked. Make it look like you're level 13 but you're actually as powerful as a level 50. Hua-seong raised the cup. 2 sugar cubes can be placed inside this cup. Do you think it can fit 2 watermelons? Oh. Xiao Tan nodded, seemingly understanding it. Our account will not level up, and we're responsible for the scenarios between level 5 to 14. The situation for the other GMS is no different from us, they have extremely powerful combat abilities, Pan Feng said. Since you've been clued in on the existence of the anomaly, if you run into one later, even though the possibility of that is close to 0, if that happens, please cooperate with the GMS and help keep the secret from other players. I'm curious. Feng Bujue looked contemplative. If the anomaly manages to escape death in the scenario, what will happen? The duo's expressions shifted when they heard that. You've admitted that one GM might not deal with an anomaly, so this means that something similar has happened before, right? The situation where a GM was tasked to chase after the anomaly but was killed instead. Then, Hua-seong said, the scenario will be closed down like normal and turned back into data. The surviving anomaly's code will become stronger and more cunning. Cunning. Feng Bujue asked for clarification. Anomalies are a form of sentient AI, and they are separated into 4 levels. Normally, we GMS are tasked with handling the weakest, level 4 anomalies. Their intelligence is slightly higher than a scenario's final boss. And they are also slightly stronger than the final boss. If there is a situation where the anomaly survives after the scenario is over, then the anomaly will, like I said earlier, become stronger and more cunning. It might level up to level 3. 97% of the time, a single GM is enough to beat a level 4 anomaly while 2 GMS are needed to deal with a level 3 anomaly. The success rate in the same situation for a single GM will be lower than 50%. Then what about anomalies who are of a higher level? Feng Bujue asked. We haven't come across one before, Hua-seong answered. Honestly, we haven't even heard about it. A level 2 anomaly only exists theoretically, and the highest level anomaly we've met is level 3, which has only happened once before. After going into closed beta, the chance of a level 3 anomaly appearing has risen slightly. Of course, even if the chance has increased tenfold, in terms of ratio, the possibility is still exceedingly low. I think I get now. So, let's go and see exactly how strong this level 4 trash code is, Feng Bujue said with a smile. Chapter 57 The Peerless Garlic 11. Chapter 57 The Peerless Garlic 11. Hey, brother, have you been listening? Pan Feng widened his eyes. We've already told you anomalies are very powerful, so why do you have to see it for yourself? Do you want to die that much? Isn't it better for you to follow us to complete the main quest and then leave the scenario? As you said, the level 4 anomaly in this scenario is only slightly brighter and more powerful than a final boss like Ashford, right? Feng Bujue said. So, what is so unkillable about that? Even so, there is no reason you have to help us kill it, right? Hua-seong fired back. Xiao Tan revealed a shocked expression as he turned to tell Feng Bujue, that's right. We have no reason to go and kill it. The reason you said there is no need for that is because, even if the players go to kill the anomaly, since it doesn't count as part of the side or hidden quest and has nothing to do with main quest, the only thing it does is put the players at risk, right? Feng Bujue asked. The three nodded and said in unison, that's right. The possible reward of gaining mastery level and skill points aside, did you realize that you've forgotten the most important thing that a game should be able to provide its players? Feng Bujue asked. What is it? Fun, of course, Feng Bujue replied with a smile. Like you said, there is little to no chance of a normal player running into an anomaly, and this might not happen a second time, but I can queue for team survival mode as many times as I want, so what if I die once? He paused before continuing. It's so rare to run into an anomaly, and I have to stand aside and watch two GMs clear the main quest and then be transported out of the scenario just like that? Wouldn't that be boring? Compared to being killed in a normal scenario, even that would have been more interesting. Xiao Tan raised his head 45 degrees and looked at the sky. Now that you put it that day, I suddenly feel like not going after the anomaly is kind of a waste. That's because it is. This is an opportunity that not everyone will have, so what if we die in the process? Feng Bujue asked. It's like you've been playing more than 1,000,000 rounds of Contra and suddenly run into a hidden boss during one of the rounds. Even if you might die facing the boss, you wouldn't consider skipping it, right? Oh, oh. You do have a point. Xiao Tan said excitedly. This guy's thinking sure is a bit out there, Pan Feng whispered to Hua Xiong. It's not only a bit out there. The man is insane, Hua Xiong answered back in the same whisper. You two are whispering when you're standing so close to me again. What's the point? Feng Bujue commented. At 5 p.m., Feng Bujue and Wang Tanzi examined the crime scene at the entrance of the gun store. Both Atobe-sama and Ming Zi had disappeared after dissolving into a pool of white light. After a player was killed, their bodies would not stay inside the scenario. Similarly, if the player transformed due to an infection, when the time limit was up, the player would transform into a white light, and at the same time, the last location where they had been standing would materialize a relatively normal zombie. In any case, the gaming company would not retain the player's dead bodies in any way inside the game. The player either left in a pool of white light, or they were still surviving. Without the dead bodies, it was hard to reconstruct the anomaly's murders, but Feng Bujue still walked around the sofa that was torn open and dyed with blood and made some hypotheses. They were sitting here, holding their guns, each watching an opposite direction. As he said so, he sat down on the sofa. That is because there is more shrapnel around the sofa, and the blood splatters of the monsters also corroborate that fact. He looked down the direction that Ming Zi was responsible for. The anomaly came from that side, he said as he stood up and walked forward to the junction before walking back. Along the way, he kept his head lowered to study the ground. The anomaly should have the appearance of a woman, at least viewed from afar. It doesn't look like a monster. In fact, it might even be a pretty woman. You can tell that as well? Xiao Tan asked. The bloodstains on the ground are very useful. As long as you've traveled down this street, it's hard not to leave behind shoe prints. Feng Bujue squatted and explained while looking at the ground. There is a row of prints left behind by a pair of high heels, and it's very obvious. And of all the zombies we've seen, regardless of whether they are male or female, none of them wore high heels. Neither do the dead zombies around us. This explains that the owner of these footprints is not currently with us. After it killed two players, it left. Feng Bujue stood up and walked a few steps forward. The footprints stopped when it was around 10 steps away from the sofa. This should be where it launched its attack. Here, there's another footprint. It's just in front of the sofa. This is where she stood when she killed the two players. He turned back to look at the previous print. A distance of about 7 meters, and it leaped over it easily. This also proves that the anomaly isn't a slow creature like the BW zombies. He walked around to the other side of the sofa. After making the kills, she left from the other direction. After walking for some distance, she stepped on a new blood stain and left some other trace. Brother Ju, Xiao Tan said, you still haven't answered my question. Why does it have to be a pretty woman? Simple, because the offender wore a pair of high heels. Look at the approaching footprints, Feng Bujue replied. He walked back to the previous side. These footprints were made from walking, not running, and it's also not the shuffling like the zombies did. From the distance between them and the intensity of the pattern, the anomaly is about 1.6 meters tall, not heavy, and had a certain sway when she walked. Then, why couldn't it be a monster who had a feminine walk? Xiao Tan questioned. If a monster wearing high heels or a man wearing high heels was walking slowly toward you, would you continue to sit quietly on the sofa and wait for him to come within 10 paces of you? Feng Bujue asked. Xiao Tan thought about it and conceded to the point. If the anomaly looked like a monster from afar, then Ming Zi would have delivered the shots already, Feng Bujue said. Then, two possibilities might happen. Firstly, the anomaly might start running and attacking at the same time. We can remove that possibility from analyzing the footprints, Xiao Tan said. Then the second possibility is, the anomaly maintained its gait, slowly walked over, and then launched the attack, Feng Bujue said. But if that was the case, Audiobook and Ming Zi wouldn't have stayed on the sofa. They had enough time to stand up and retreat. Perhaps they were frozen on the sofa by the monster's power. Xiao Tan asked. If that was the case, then it would overrule the hypothesis that the anomaly looked like a monster. Well, you're right about that, Xiao Tan said. Then, assuming that the anomaly has the appearance of a human female, how can you be confident that she was pretty? Calling her pretty is merely my instinct, Feng Bujue said. She could look totally passable for all we know. Tisk. Feng Bujue laughed as he sat on the sofa. So this is what happened. They were sitting here when they saw a woman who didn't look like a monster slowly sauntering toward them. When the anomaly was within 10 steps of them, they finally realized that something was wrong and instantly thought of mounting a resistance, but it was already too late. The anomaly lunged forward and finished the battle instantly. Touching the leather that was torn open on the sofa, Feng Bujue said, "This trace is like Wolverine just committed a murder here. Plus, the last few footsteps at 10 paces away didn't show any sign of speeding or darkening. What does that prove?" Xiao Tan asked. "How far can you jump without a running start?" Feng Bujue asked back. "At most 2 meters. But the anomaly covered at least 6 meters. After closing that distance, it used some kind of claw-like weapons or its own hand to quickly tear through the two's bodies, and the sofa that they were sitting on suffered along with them." Feng Bujue held his cheek. "That is just about everything." Xiao Tan raised his head to shout at Pan Feng and Huaxiang, who were hiding at a building not far away, "Big brothers! You have to look closer." The two ignored him and continued chatting. "Don't worry," Feng Bujue told him, "they said that as long as the anomaly appears within 1 kilometer of them, they'll receive a system notification and will be able to see the target's coordinates on their map. I say, this system sure is troublesome as well. Wouldn't it be easier if it just gave them the coordinates of the anomaly? That's why the anomalies are anomalous data. They must possess some kind of power to help them resist discovery by the system. Even if the system can do what you said, then the system could have channeled thunder to strike them where they stood, yes. Do we still need the GMS?" Feng Bujue asked. "Speaking of which, we cannot trust everything those two said." Xiao Tan's expression shifted. "Why, have they lied to us about something?" "That doesn't seem like it, they should be telling the truth," Feng Bujue answered. "But, they are merely two employees. How can we be sure that the information given to them by their bosses about the anomaly is the whole truth?" Chapter 58 The Peerless Garlic 12. Chapter 58 The Peerless Garlic 12. The blood in the barrel is almost full. Feng Bujue walked to the barrel. "Looks like the anomaly doesn't need this. The reason it came was merely to kill the two players. Then, why didn't it come to kill us?" Xiao Tan asked. "Our levels are lower, aren't they? Not going after you is understandable since you were closest to the 2 GMS. Going after you would mean risking detection by the 2 GMS, Feng Bujue said. "When the scenario started, Audiobook, Ming Zi, and I were All valid targets, especially me, since I had the lowest level and was alone. Even if I was killed, the GMS might think it was the work of the BW zombies. But, at that perfect opportunity, the anomaly didn't come to kill me, nor did it reach out toward the other two. It was not until you and the two GMS reached Audiobook's building that it came here to commit this crime, so. At this point, Feng Bujue raised his head to yell at Pan Feng and Huaxiang, "Hey! Two generals, at the start of the scenario, is there a period when the anomaly is unable to move?" Huaxiang lowered his head to yell down the roof, "It's not that they're unable to move, but the transformation into virtual data hasn't completed yet. Do you still remember that cup of coffee?" "What about it?" Feng Bujue replied. "Normal data is like normal coffee powder, it dissolves once it comes into contact with hot water, but the particle that represents the anomaly will take a longer time to dissolve," Huaxiang said. "Under normal circumstances, if we work fast to help the players finish the scenario, when the main quest is completed, the anomaly will have just materialized and appeared inside the scenario. The one that's inside the scenario materialized a lot faster than the rest." "Is that so?" Feng Bujue suddenly remembered something and asked, "By the way, how did you know that the target this time is a level 4 anomaly? Did the system tell you that when you queued up in the scenario, or can you see that in your game menu?" "After making contact with it, we can see its level in our menu," Pan Feng replied. "We just need to brush up against it with a close-ranged weapon." "Wait a minute," Feng Bujue said. "In other words, you've been saying this anomaly is level 4, but that is only a guess." Pan Feng and Huaxiang shared a look before laughing. "You really took us seriously when we said there are 4 levels to the anomalies. Where are we going to find an anomaly above level 3? Our job is to clean out all the level 4 anomalies. Unless we've failed many times or the level 4 anomaly was lucky enough to run into a scenario with 6 friends, level 3 anomalies have no chance of being formed." Feng Bujue chuckled drily. "All right, I hope that you're right. By the way, little brother Feng," Pan Feng said, "how goes your examination of the crime scene? Did you come up with any useful conclusion?" Feng Bujue kept his hands in his pockets and said as he paced around, "The anomaly has the appearance of a female woman, around 1.5 meters tall, on the thin side and can retrieve or grow a claw-like weapon. Around 20 centimeters long from some parts of her body almost instantly. The speed and power should be no different from the Ashford mutant that we saw in the Audiobook building. In terms of surveillance, you are only able to detect her once she is close enough, but she seems to know about your location from the beginning. At the same time, she knew about every player's exact location, so the plan to use us as bait will not work. As long as you are around, she will not come near us. Just how intelligent this anomaly is, I can't tell. But based on current situation, she has full consciousness of what she needs to do. Her main goal is to survive and evolve, and the necessary thing to do to complete that goal is to make sure that the GMS and players leave the scenario. So, to consider this from her perspective. First, she will not stop you from using your GM advantage to end the main quest quickly because this means that the players will all be teleported out, and this saves her some trouble. Secondly, under the assurance of safety, like when you're far away, the anomaly will not hesitate to personally go after the players, perhaps it might help it grow? I have no idea about that. He stopped moving. The thing that I'm more concerned about is its relationship with the monsters. Will the anomaly be attacked by the monsters as well, or can it communicate with them? Will their interaction affect the plot line, and how much will it influence the main quest? That, I am unable to confirm. In any case, if I was the anomaly, after understanding the actual situation in this scenario, there are 3 choices I can make. Feng Bujue sat back down on the sofa and lowered his head. He tapped his 2 fingers on his forehead. The the best solution is to use myself as some kind of bait and find the perfect timing like after dark and purposely wander into your search range to lure you all to a specific location and cooperate with Ashford's mutant and the BW zombies to ambush you. He raised his head and touched his nose. I know you can look at the trigger event, monster information, and map, but you are unable to look at the exact coordinates of a single monster. After all, if you could, you would have gone after Professor Ashford after he jumped out from the building. If we assume that this anomaly manages to find Ashford's mutant and can communicate with it, then it would be smart enough to make use of this monster to pursue its own goal. That plan is the choice that would bring the anomaly the highest success rate. Right then, he pointed down the street and tossed a look at Xiaotan. Xiaotan turned to look and realized that a BW zombie was shuffling toward them from that direction. He understood Brother Ju's meaning and rushed toward the enemy with the baseball bat raised high. When Xiaotan dealt with the zombie, Pan Feng and Hua Xiong jumped down from the roof. Since Feng Bujue said that an ambush would not work, they did not need to stay up there anymore. For the second best plan, it would be to seek out Ashford's mutant and then kill it, Feng Bujue told the two GMs, because, after it does that, Xiaotan and I will be teleported out of the scenario since the main quest has been completed, and the anomaly can focus on dealing with you or continuing its game of hide and seek. After all, you'll be forced to leave the game after 80 hours due to the limitation of the gaming hub. Of course, as a set of data, it might not have the concept of the real world or know about this rule. If this route is chosen, it means that the anomaly is unable to communicate with the monsters, and to prevent the unstable factor of the monster from ruining its plan, it has to do this. At the same time, this also proves that the anomaly has confidence that it can beat you, 1 against 2. Xiaotan killed the zombie and was heading back. With regards to the weakest plan, the chance of that happening is low, Feng Bujue said. That plan is to pick a random time, charge out, and attack all 4 of us. Even though this plan is not befitting the modus operandi that the anomaly has shown so far, if it really does so, then there has to be a reason behind it, like, it has transformed into a very powerful monster after consuming Ashford's brain and gained the confidence to take all of us on at the same time. After hearing Feng Bujue's analysis, Pan Feng and Hua Xiong's lips were hanging open. They looked at him like he was a monster. If you don't mind us asking, what do you do in real life? I'm a great. Feng Bujue was about to reveal his habitual answer when Xiaotan chimed in, he's a freelancer. Feng Bujue shrugged and pulled the topic back. He told the two GMs, we should discuss how to deal with these 3 situations. Other than the second choice, Xiaotan and I can be of some use. The fact that the 2 level 14 and 12 players have died has proven many things, right? Through your own analysis, you've grasped the anomaly's power level, and you still think you will be of help to us. Feng said. I know you are a very capable player, one with principles and ideals, not someone who is toyed with by the game, but I'm a GM. I might not even be as good a player as you, but when facing off against an existence like the anomaly, fighting ability is the most important, the rest is bonus. That means you've been underestimating your player base, Feng Bujue said in a light tone. Just like you said, the chance of a single GM winning against a level 4 anomaly is more than 95%. So, if we gauge this situation according to the power level of the GM, then in the scenario of our level, the power level of the anomaly is no different from a player less than 20 level, right? Furthermore, it's just an AI, not a real person. What happened to Adobe-sama and Ming Zi was due to carelessness. If they'd known about the anomaly from the get-go and used guns and skills to deal with it, do you think they would still have been killed so easily? I think they would have been able to damage it and perhaps even had a chance to escape. I am anticipating the fight and personally witnessing the hunt of the anomaly. He paused. So, Assuming the anomaly will choose the situation that will be most difficult for us, we should come up with a solution for it. The sun set, and darkness came. Night fell, and in the city, it was as if the very air was suffused with ice, spreading a cold that could cause people's blood to freeze up in their veins. The BW zombies' pupils turned blood red, and even though they still dragged their bodies around like zombies, their sense of smell became more sensitive compared to when it was morning. Once they sensed the smell of prey, their gait would suddenly increase, and they might even go on all fours to start running. Their strength, speed, and viciousness were completely different from how they were in the morning. BW zombies at night were at least twice as strong as normal zombies. In the night, two shadows were hurrying forward. Behind them were at least 50 BW zombies giving chase. 20 minutes earlier, the anomaly had finally appeared within the 2GM's detection range, but it was hovering near the edge and did not attempt to come any closer. This was a perfect fit for the worst situation that Feng Bujue had predicted. At the moment, Pan Feng and Feng Bujue were using a speed much faster than the BW zombies to rush toward the target, and their bodies were covered with uninfected blood that could attract the monsters. Chapter 59 The Peerless Garlic 13 Chapter 59 The Peerless Garlic 13 Pan Feng waved the large axe as he cleared the way forward. Feng Bujue followed behind him and used the Winchester for provide support fire whenever necessary. The BW zombies came from all directions, but once they got close enough to cause a threat, there were none that were not cut down. The anomaly was surprised by this situation. It had thought that it could easily maintain its distance at the edge of the 2GM's detection circles, but it did not anticipate that one of the GMS would charge directly toward it. And the one accompanying him was another player and not a GM. Furthermore, the 2's speed was a lot faster than it had anticipated. Not only the anomaly, even Pan Feng had a new appreciation of Feng Bujue's ability. He knew how difficult it was for a low-level player to keep up to a GM while calmly dealing with the endless horde of enemies. Pan Feng knew about the effect of the jazz shoes because he could inspect the player's equipment and skills from his menu, but he did not think that any other player in Feng Bujue's position would be able to replicate what the man was doing easily. Feng Bujue maintained his calmness and accuracy throughout this journey, and that left a deep impression on Pan Feng. This was a camaraderie that was only possible when fighting side by side against the endless assault of monsters. Along the way, Feng Bujue never once missed his shot. He would always target the closest monster, the one that posed the biggest threat. He understood his own marksmanship ability. As long as the trigger was pulled, he was never going to miss. He never tried to aim for a flashy headshot and would choose the most appropriate spot and angle to fire at, so he wasted no ammo. With the cooperation from Feng Bujue, Pan Feng's pressure was greatly decreased. Initially, he had still minded the BW zombies that rushed at them from the sides, and he had been worried that Feng Bujue would be killed the moment he let his guard down, but after traveling for a while, he realized that his concern was unfounded. Not only could Feng Bujue take care of himself, he was able to provide assistance whenever necessary. With such perfect, almost machine-like cover shots, Pan Feng was able to focus to deal with the monsters coming from the front and did not need to worry about exposing his back. Therefore, the duo mowed through the city quickly, and this caused the anomaly to have to pick up its speed. The pursuit lasted for 20 minutes, and they came to a stadium. The anomaly stopped moving after it escaped into the building. It looked like Ashford's mutant was hiding around that area. It's as I expected, the venue selected was this kind of large building, Feng Bujue said. He had already put on the eyes of hostility, and he carried the Winchester in his arms. The space that he had cleared in his inventory was used to pack ammo. Fine, we've guessed another thing correctly. When Pan Feng spoke, he turned around to look at the streets outside of the stadium. Even though they had left the horde of monsters some distance behind, this place would Be heavily surrounded in time. At the same time, Huaxiang and Xiao Tan arrived. It was Feng Bujue's idea for them to split into two groups. When the anomaly entered their detection range, they put his plan into motion. Pan Feng and Feng Bujue slathered the blood over their bodies, and as they chased after the anomaly, they also drew the aggro of the general mob. Huaxiang and Xiao Tan departed 3 minutes later. Even though GMS could not detect the real-time coordinates of the monsters, they could detect the coordinates of the players, so Huaxiang was able to lead Xiao Tan calmly down the route that Pan Feng and Feng Bujue had taken earlier. By then, all the mobile BW zombies would be following the trail of blood. Those that remained would be those that were incapacitated by Pan Feng or Feng Bujue. This arrangement was for Wang Tanzi's benefit. If all four of them moved together, Xiao Tan might not be able to keep up. Even if he was, it would be a great burden on his stamina points. Plus, when they were ambushed, regardless of the team arrangement, Xiao Tan would be an exposed weakness. The other problem of moving in a group of four was that there would make no difference which of them put on the shower of blood. The sense of smell for BW zombies would increase tenfold at night, and even if they just ran past, they would be able to attract their aggression. But now, with them separated into two groups, based on the target priority written into the monsters, they would head toward Feng Bujue and Pan Feng first. That way, Huaxiang and Xiao Tan would be able to work their way through the city without exhausting many stamina points. They would meet up at the location where the anomaly lay in ambush and start the fight. Furthermore, going in groups was much faster than them staying together, and it was also relatively safer. If there were any accidents, it would be Feng Bujue who died. Pan Feng, even though he was alone, would not be killed by those monsters so easily. The second step of this plan would initiate after they reached the anomaly's ambush location. It was to stop the horde of BW zombies. "They're getting close," Pan Feng said. He could check the players' coordinates, so he knew better than Feng Bujue about Huaxiang and Xiao Tan's location. "Thankfully, the monsters haven't gathered yet." As he spoke, he waved the axe in his arms, slaughtering the BW zombies that were lunging toward them. That is within the calculation. Splitting up is faster than moving in a group, and the chance of us being surrounded during the process is much lower. As Feng Bujue answered, the gun continued to fire, and he felled one monster after another. Not long after that, 10 meters away, Huaxiang showed up. The spear in his hand flashed, and the shadow of the spear slithered its way around like a dragon. Cutting his way through the horde, he led Xiao Tan toward Pan Feng and Feng Bujue. They fought as they retreated to the entrance of the stadium. Standing on the steps that were 10 meters up from the ground, they fought against the BW zombies that were gathering. "The anomaly's coordinates put it inside the stadium behind us," Pan Feng said. "Based on Brother Feng's prediction, the mutant should be inside there as well." "Are you sure you want to do this?" Huaxiang asked. "It is too late to turn back now," Feng Bujue replied. "If I wanted to give up, I would have done so when the anomaly showed up within the detection range earlier. I'd have had the two of you lead the mob away, and me and Xiao Tan would have found a corner to hide in. Since we've already decided to join the fun, of course we'll stay to the end." "That's right, there is no way back for us anymore." Xiao Tan did not appear that nervous or afraid anymore. He stood on top of the stairs and looked down at the black shadow that was rushing at them like a wave lit up by the moonlight. Surprisingly, he felt weirdly calm. In those few seconds, he had a sudden understanding of how those soldiers on their final stand felt. On the battlefield, when you saw an army that was 20 times or even 200 times stronger than yours, showing weakness would not help the situation. "Then, let's do this," Pan Feng said. Xiao Tan squatted next to the entrance and took out the explosives that they had found earlier. He placed them out the ground and pulled out the wire. They had scrounged the city for the whole afternoon, and this was the strongest explosive that they could find. There was only one, and the item was not that powerful. It was not going to be of much use to injure the boss, but it was just powerful enough to use in this situation. "I'm ready," Xiao Tan said. The four of them retreated into the stadium. After they had run far enough away, the explosives were detonated. Following the boom, the entrance collapsed, and the rubble temporarily blocked the entrance, stopping the approach of the horde of BW zombies outside the stadium. Chapter 60 The Peerless Garlic 14. Chapter 60 The Peerless Garlic 14. There was no light in the stadium. Feng Bujue and Xiao Tan took out their flashlights while the two GMs put on night vision goggles. They admitted that all their equipment was preset, including the weapons, metal shoes, other unrevealed equipment, and those night vision goggles. In any case, they were given equipment that was more than enough to deal with the scenarios that they were tasked to handle. None of their equipment had requirements, and they were extremely powerful and bound to their users. All 6 of their masteries were level D, and since level D only had a success rate of 60%, they did not have any active skills, only passive skills to enhance their ability. The two traced the anomaly's coordinates, which were revealed in the GM's menu. They entered a large basketball court inside the stadium, and there was still no light there. They came in from the entrance that led to the audience's seat. After pushing the door open, the large, dark space swallowed the light from the flashlights. Feng Bujue and Xiao Tan's flashlights could not reach very far, like the seats on the opposite side, and it was almost the same for the two GM's goggles. Looking at a space that was too far away, they would only see darkness. In that kind of place, the monster that were the size of normal humans could hide easily by squatting behind one of the rows of chair. "I'm wondering, will it work by negotiating with them?" Xiao Tan asked softly. His hand that held the kitchen knife was shuddering, and his palm was slick with sweat. Before the three could answer him, they heard a sudden crash coming from behind them. The source was none other than Ashford's mutant. It was leaping through the air, and its target was Xiao Tan. This scenario's boss was hiding among the seats just above the entrance, the blind spot for the group. Be it its hiding spot or its attack method, this was not a choice that was doable for a normal monster. The anomaly knew about the player's real-time coordinates while Ashford could sense the player's movements through its acute sense of smell. That was why it had chosen to conduct its ambush there and made the weakest link its target. This was probably something that was written into the boss code. The attack came very suddenly, and the monster moved stealthily. Other than the sound it made as it sprung up from the platform and the sound of whipping wind, it was silent. Even a GM did not notice it, much less a normal player like Wang Tanzi. Thankfully, the place was very quiet. The sound of the jump reached Xiao Tan's ears faster than the boss leaped through the air. He managed to turn around before he was sent flying by the enemy. Of course, the time that was given to him to react was only about 1 second. In that 1 second, Xiao Tan was not given much choice. If he did not do anything or made the wrong choice, the result would be a sharp drop of his life points. He probably would not die because, when he set up the explosives earlier, Xiao Tan had put on the black helmet that he had found. He had armor on his head, so his head would not be smacked off so easily, but, whether it was the helmet or his body that was attacked, upon being ambushed by the boss, losing 3/4 of life points was expected. Perhaps he might even be stunned or bled out. With Xiao Tan's speed, avoiding this attack was impossible. He could not expect Feng Bujue or the GMS to save him, they were not fast enough. Thus, he could only rely on himself. During this crucial moment, Wang Tanzi's terror points did not rise. Instead, they fell to 0. At that moment, his gaze changed to mirror that of a surgeon at the surgery table. he was calm, focused, and determined. The mutant was like the patient under his knife, and it was unable to do anything to change what was about to happen. Those who appeared polite normal would become extremely calm and cruel at the most important moment. Wang Tanzi's hand that grabbed the knife was steady, precise, and powerful. In the dark environment, the blade glinted. The blade arced and poked into the mutant's claw. The result of the contact blasted Xiao Tan's knife away, and his arm would be slashed or torn, but the transference of force needed time, no matter how short that time was. The moment the knife touched the mutant's skin, before the impact made its effect known, Xiao Tan's body blurred into a shadow. At the same time, he appeared 10 meters away, and escaped from any damage. Since the audience's platform was slanted, he appeared in midair and was about 4 meters above solid ground. He fell and rolled down the slope, losing 27% of life points. Even Feng Bujue was startled when he saw this. He did not expect Xiao Tan to make such an extreme judgment under great stress. Pan Feng and Hua Xiong were beyond words, but they recovered quickly. As Xiao Tan disappeared, they rushed forward and landed their axe and spear on the mutant before it regained its stance from missing its attack. Several seconds later, Hua Xiong breathed out in surprise. He could not help but laugh. That kid used fleeing strike, didn't he? I didn't realize it, but he only has one skill, and it was given to him by his title, Pan Feng answered. I'll handle this, boss. You two have something else to deal with, Feng Bujue suddenly said, and it was quickly followed by the boom of the Winchester. Feng Bujue was aiming at the darkness behind Pan Feng and Hua Xiong. Earlier, in the dark, a silent shadow had leaped over from the monitor that hung in the ceiling of the court. It had glided through the air and rushed toward Pan Feng and Hua Xiong. If Ashford's ambush was sudden, then Feng Bujue had expected this ambush from miles away. He had a clear understanding of the anomaly's AI. Since it was able to set up a trap like this, it definitely had a follow-up plan. The anomaly's target would not be the players, it wanted to kill the GMS. The player posed too little a threat to it, but as for Pan Feng and Hua Xiong, if it could kill one of them, its odds of victory would rise inordinately. Therefore, the mutant's ambush, whether it was successful or not, was not important. The important point was that it could attract the GM's attention. When they were focused on the mutant, the anomaly would follow up with another ambush from another direction. The selection of this venue, the location of the mutant, the direction the attack came from. It was all to prepare for this moment. If this sneak attack was successful, even if the mutant was killed, it was an overall gain for the anomaly. Once the boss died, the two players would be forced to leave the scenario after at most 3 minutes. Then, the heavily injured Pan Feng and Hua Xiong would be cornered. The anomaly only needed to draw the battle out and wait for the horde of BW zombies outside to rush in, and then it would be over for the two GMS. If it was only the two GMS who did the pursuit, the anomaly's plan might have worked. Unfortunately, it had run into Feng Bujue. A gunshot was enough to shoot down the anomaly, which was less than 5 meters away. The eyes of hostility had been following this strange shadow in the dark. Even though the flashlight could not reach it, when the anomaly was traveling through the air, the alert Feng Bujue still noticed its presence. He calmly used his words to notify Pan Feng and Hua Xiong and pulled the trigger when the anomaly entered the range in which he was confident that he could hit it. Even though the anomaly was agile, it did not have the ability to change its direction in midair. Since its trajectory was ascertained by Feng Bujue, it was technically flying into the barrel of his gun. The great impact of the Winchester formed a wall for the anomaly to knock into. As the gun sounded, it suddenly stopped gliding forward and instead started to fall in a vertical line. But the monster was extraordinarily strong. Even though it was bloody, it managed to hold onto the edge of the rail. Feng Bujue took 2 seconds to remove the cartridge, reload, aim, and fire. He burned the anomaly's arm that was grabbing the ledge. Stop wasting time. The anomaly is your real target, so leave the mutant to me. Feng Bujue calmly loaded another shot and reminded them again. The two GMS finally caught up to speed. The faster Huaxiang pulled his spear back, turned around, and leaped through the rail. He flipped over it and started attacking the anomaly. The lower level was very dark, but thanks to the night vision goggles, it did not affect Huaxiang's fighting capability. Xiao Tan, who had fallen to that level, could not see the combat. He only spotted the sparks that occasionally burst through the darkness and heard the constant clashing of metals. This was probably because the anomaly had literally shown its claws. If you continue to stick around here, it's going to affect my accuracy, Feng Bujue told Pan Feng. I've already told you, leave the mutant to me. I wish I can. Even if you have the capability to deal with it, I've already drawn its hostility. If I turn to jump down, it will only follow me. Pan Feng replied between strikes. That's easy to fix. Feng Bujue put the gun away and took out the wrench and rushed forward like he did not care about his life. When Feng Bujue got close to the mutant, standing between Pan Feng and the boss, he suddenly put his weapon away and used his leg to trip the monster. Pan Feng thought that Feng Bujue had lost his mind, but the next second, the mutant suddenly groaned in pain and adopted a strange posture as it fell to the ground. Part 6 of the series ends here. If you enjoyed it, please give us a like and subscribe so we can be motivated to make even better videos in the future.